Hi everyone, this is Paul Miller with the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center, and I'm just going to give a quick overview of our 2017 water year and the early season water supply outlook. Just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about our fall soil moisture conditions, our October through December climate, specifically with regards to precipitation and temperature. Our current snow conditions, both as they're monitored on the ground and modeled in our hydrologic model. We're also going to talk about our update to our calibration period, and then we'll hit some of the current seasonal forecast highlights. So just the big takeaway points here. Basically, there's dry fall soil moisture conditions over the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center. There are a few notable exceptions. There are wetter conditions in the Upper Green, Duchesne, and Bear River basins. And these dry conditions are important just because they could result in a less efficient runoff. It's really important to stress that right now there's large uncertainty in our ensembles this time of year. So there could be larger changes month to month, and our skill typically isn't as great this time of year. As the snowpack starts to accumulate, we will have more skillful forecasts going into the future. So just a look at our fall soil moisture conditions. You can see here that this map illustrates soil moisture conditions on November 16th. And what we really want you to see here is that for the most part, over our area of responsibility, we have dry soil moisture conditions. If we look up towards the north, particularly the northwest portion of our area of responsibility, we have wetter soil moisture conditions in the north, in the northern part of the Green River Basin, and in northern Utah, southern Idaho, in the Bear River Basin area, and then even some wetter conditions down in the Duchesne River Basin. And really, this map isn't so that you can say, that there's these quantitative soil moisture measurements or modeled soil moisture components at these particular points of the basin. It's really a map to show where we could expect more efficient runoff and less efficient runoff. So we might expect more efficient runoff up here towards the northwest, and less efficient runoff over here in the east in the Colorado headwater areas, or the Gunnison River Basin, or even into the San Juan River Basin. So this animation shows our early season climate pattern, and you can see we've got this high pressure ridge that has set up around southern Arizona and New Mexico. This is typical for what we've seen the last few years, where we've seen high pressure systems set up down here and big ridges that basically take any kind of precipitation over California, over the Colorado River Basin, and into the Midwest and eastern portion of the United States. This year, this high pressure is not as dominant, so we're getting a lot more activity. Those wetter conditions that you saw in the Bear and the Green River Basin is due in large part to this kind of pattern. We did see some drier conditions down in the lower Colorado River Basin, which we'll talk about. But again, a bit more of a progressive pattern, but we did have that high pressure ridge that has typically been at the beginning of the water year for a lot of our past few years. So just kind of looking at the early water year climate, and these maps show state-wide temperature and precipitation rankings. You can see we're off to a very warm start. October and November were historically warm. Arizona had the warmest October average on record out of the 122 years that they've been doing these kinds of records. But a lot of these states in our area of responsibility, second or third warmest on record. October was pretty dry. Again, you can see dry conditions in Colorado Arizona, New Mexico. A little bit wetter as we go up into Wyoming. November, things started to mellow out a little bit. We actually had pretty wet conditions in Arizona and New Mexico, near average conditions in Utah and Colorado, slightly drier going into the north, but kind of a mixed bag going into November. Looking at some of our temperature maps that you can find on our website, we have our max and min temperatures for October and our max and min temperatures for November. And what you see here is we had very warm temperatures over our area of responsibility. And so, this is just to indicate that we've had a very warm start to our water year. Typically doesn't bode super well for water supply, but it's still very early on in the season, and as I'm about to show, precipitation has been a bit more variable in our area. So looking at precipitation early on in this water year, you can see October was a bit of a mixed bag. We had some nice precipitation amounts towards the northwest portion of our area. November tended to be pretty dry for the most part in the north, but we did have some storms roll through southern Arizona and New Mexico. You can see this swath of blue here, just indicating some above average precipitation conditions. And then December so far has been pretty good for the upper Colorado River Basin and the Great Basin regions. You can see very wet conditions here in the northwest, and then pretty wet conditions here in the Colorado headwater region, headwaters of the Gunnison. Still a bit dry as we head into the headwaters of the San Juan River Basin. So if you go to our website, you can see the distribution of SNOW-SNOTEL gauges over our area of responsibility. Just each one of these little squares is the SNOW-SNOTEL site. And you can click on any of these squares and get these kinds of graphics that'll show you point measurements of snowpack. And again, it's very early in the season. Things can change quite a bit. But if we look over at Trial Lake, one of the higher elevation stations in the Great Basin, you can see this blue line indicates that we're above median so far, and we're doing better than we were at this point last season. So about 135% of median. As we head down south towards the headwaters of the San Juan River Basin, if we look at Wolf Creek Summit, you can see we're below median, below where we were this time of year. Again, very early on in the season, a good snow event or precip event can really change how these look going forward. But you can see in general towards the northwest, a lot of these SNOW-SNOTEL stations are showing, near average to above average conditions, even a little bit in the Colorado headwaters, but then drier conditions in general as you head further south. So how does this all look in our model? So on the left here, we're showing our modeled snowpack conditions over the upper Colorado River Basin. And you can see towards the northwest, the northern part of the Green River Basin, good modeled snowpack conditions, near normal to slightly above average in the Colorado headwaters. And then drier conditions as we go south, particularly as we head into the San Juan River Basin and into the Gunnison River Basin. The Great Basin's off to a great start. We're seeing above average snow conditions throughout the Great Basin. Again, very early on in the season, but it's a very promising start for water supply in the Great Basin. So just kind of looking at some of our early seasonal runoff outlooks. Again, the range in our ESP is very large this time of year. The scale in our forecast is less than other times of the year after our snowpack accumulation has really got it going. And those official forecasts will begin in January. So we'll have a decent idea of the early snowpack accumulation, and we'll be able to give a bit more of a skillful forecast. What we're doing this year that most of you have been very interested in is we are updating our calibration period. We're just adding 5 years to our calibration record. We have done this for all the sites above Lake Powell, so basically the upper Colorado River Basin is done. So all our ESP forecasts will be based off of a 35-year ensemble of 1981 through 2015, as opposed to the traditional 81 through 2010 ensemble that we've used the last 3 or 4 years. We are not updating our official averages, so averages are still going to be computed based on that 81 through 2010 period. For the Great Basin and the Lower Colorado River Basin, we'll still be using a 30-member ensemble from 81 through 2010. We will be updating those ensembles and that calibration period to also be 81 through 2015, but probably won't be done this year. We'll rely on our 30 traces this year and get to our 35 traces for the Great Basin and Lower Colorado River Basin next year. And that's just mostly a resource issue. We need to do a lot of data collection, a lot of QA, QC, and we'll have those ready to go for next year. Just some of these impacts due to those water supply forecasts. There's going to be little change in most areas, particularly the further north you get. Not a lot of changes from using this 35-year calibration period. We can expect some slightly drier forecasts in the San Juan River Basin, but really as the season progresses, the forecasts are going to be driven by the hydrology, by the kind of snowpack that we're modeling, by the kind of precipitation that we're measuring on the ground. That's what's really going to drive our forecasts as we go forward. Just a quick reminder, if you'd like to see our water supply forecast, best way to do that is to go to our website, cbrfc.noaa.gov. Click on Water Supply Forecast up here at the top, or Water Supply Forecast, the little drop-down menu at the right. You'll see these triangles pop up with all our water supply forecasts. And there's a few options here that you can see the official forecast or the raw model guidance that comes from those. You can just click these different radio buttons here. And if you hover over or click on any of the triangles, you'll see this little word bubble pop up with our water supply forecast plots that show up. This one's from last year, but it kind of shows what these plots will evolve to. Right now, what you'll see is you'll just see, just a few blue bars when you click on that. Again, we don't have any official forecasts until January. These are just our raw model guidance that's coming from our Ensemble Streamflow prediction tools. But what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see the 10 and the 90% exceedance values, the 70 and the 30% exceedance values kind of in this lighter blue area, and then the 50th percentile value, that little middle dash there, what we commonly refer to as our most probable forecast. But you'll see our daily model guidance update every day on our website, and these as these blue bars accumulate, and as our official forecasts get issued, you will see those as well. So just looking at our latest guidance here, looking at the upper Green River Basin and the northern portion of the Great Basin here in northern Utah, forecasted guidance is just looking about average or slightly above average. As we get into the Colorado headwaters here, we have near average conditions being forecasted. And as we move south into the Gunnison River Basin, a bit drier, and into the San Juan River Basin, even drier still. So as we move further south, you tend to see these drier forecasts coming out of our raw ESP guidance early on this season here. Looking in the lower Colorado River Basin, it's a bit more of a mixed bag. These are values with respect to percent of median. And again, we can see some drier conditions here, but as we look into the northern portion here of the Gila River Basin, some of the Gila River Basin headwaters, we see some slightly wetter conditions. but for the most part, relatively dry in the lower Colorado River Basin. So let's hit the highlights here. So if we look at the Flaming Gorge Reservoir up in the northern portion of the Green River Basin, we're forecasting near average conditions, just a little bit over 1 million acre feet, about 103% of average. Looking into the Gunnison at the Blue Mesa Reservoir, about 475,000 acre feet, that's about 70% of average. As we go south and into those drier conditions, in the San Juan River Basin at the Navajo Reservoir, about 464,000 acre feet, or 63% of average. And going all the way down to Lake Powell, we see about 5.2 million acre feet, or 73% of average. Looking in the Great Basin at the Bear River towards the northern portion of Utah, at the Utah-Wyoming state line, we see a forecast of about 114,000 acre feet, or about 102% of average. A little bit south to the Weber River Basin, just slightly below average, about 92%, about 108,000 acre feet forecasted there. The Provo River near Woodland, 92,000 acre feet, or 92% of average. And then as we go south into the lower Colorado River Basin, if we look at the Virgin River in the southwest corner of Utah, about 32,000 acre feet, or 55% of average. Looking at the Salt River near Roosevelt, about 173,000 acre feet, or 56% of median. And looking at the Gila at Gila in New Mexico, we're currently forecasting about 31,000 acre feet, or about 55% of the median value there. So looking at our current weather pattern, we see a much more progressive weather pattern, a much more active weather pattern. And I think that's the big takeaway here, is that we're expecting to see active conditions, storms every couple days or so. So that will bode well for water supply conditions, providing that the weather plays out how we think it'll play out. So again, very active pattern here. We don't see that high pressure system setting up any sort of ridges here. And if we look at some of the upcoming storms here, we'll start to see some light showers Wednesday and Thursday that'll cross into our area, followed by a colder system up here towards the north that we think will bring widespread precipitation over the area and impact the weekend. So hopefully your weekend plans aren't dependent on the weather. We think we see this moisture moving into the region beginning tomorrow. And then widespread precip over most of the area on Friday. Just looking even a little bit further down the road, we see this northwest flow coming in on the 22nd, bringing even more moisture and continuing this active weather pattern through our area. So hopefully bringing more moisture to our area and more water to our snowpack. If you go to our website, you can see our 5-day precipitation forecast. This is the one pulled from today. So you can see relatively light conditions today and tomorrow. But as we get into Wednesday and Thursday and into the weekend, we see more active conditions and a pretty healthy 5-day total of precipitation. Looking at information from the Climate Prediction Center, you can see they're forecasting slightly enhanced chances for warmer conditions through February over our area of responsibility. Drier conditions in the lower Colorado River Basin, and maybe a slightly higher chance for wetter conditions in the northern portion of the basin. Equal chances throughout the northern part of the basin. So we've posted our water supply webinar schedule. Feel free to sign up for any or all of them. We'll have these water supply webinars just after we issue the official forecast at the beginning of each month, January through May. Similar to like we did last year, we're going to split these webinars into two. We're going to have a Colorado River Basin centric one and a Great Basin centric one. The Colorado River Basin one will be at 11 a.m. on these dates, and we're going to follow that with the Great Basin one at 1:30. Feel free to contact us. We really want to hear from you. We want to hear about your needs. We want to help you interpret this information as best as you possibly can. So please feel free to contact us with any questions. We're easy to talk to. We're easy to get a hold of. These are the focal points for the forecast areas over our area of responsibility. But please feel free to contact any of us. You can get in touch with any of us by email. Just do first name last name and at NOAA.gov, or contact our office at 801-524-5130 and either press 1 to speak to a hydrologist or ask our admin assistant to route you to a hydrologist. Thanks so much. I hope this was informative. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with myself or anybody here at the Colorado River Basin Forecast Center. Thanks.